Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Sher. Welcome to our special Square Off post-election show. Let's meet our panel. There's distinguished attorney Tonya Bana, Mr. Politics Hassan Giordano, our spiritual leader here on Square Off, Reverend Shannon Wright, and the man of all seasons, super talk show star, Jimmy Mathis. Mr. Politics, we want to start with you. We want your reaction to Mayor Brandon Scott's double-digit victory over Sheila Nixon. Go ahead, Hassan.
Well, I think, look, there's a lot of stuff to take away from the primary elections the other night. One, the former mayor Sheila Dixon has conceded to Mayor Brandon Scott. I think AP called it a little early, especially when there was like 30,000 ballots still remaining to be counted with mail-ins and provisionals. But given the trajectory of how those ballots were counted recently, that there was no way that former Mayor Dixon would have caught up. I think a lot of people were surprised by the gap in between the two candidates, especially when you looked at the early numbers coming into election night, early voting, as well as mail-in ballots. They were really close, a 550 vote margin between the two. The mayor kind of expanded his lead throughout election day in the recent mail-ins. But the greatest thing, I think, across the board, not just in Baltimore City, was the historically low voter turnout that we saw.
Yeah.
I think it was 21% or so turnout, which was just despicable for any election.
What do you think about that, Ms. Tonya?
Yeah, I think that the low voter turnout is a very disappointing statistic, and I think it speaks to a general apathy among voters, not just in the local elections, but writ large. I think that we're seeing years worth of attacks on our election process undermining the integrity of elections, and I think that increasingly people don't think that elections matter, and that's a shame because they obviously do. We're seeing the fallout of our election, or bad election choices in years past. And I will say this: I'm surprised by Mayor Scott's double-digit, I guess, margin of victory. But I think it's important for him to recognize that he does not have a mandate. Kwame Mfume has a mandate. He got 88% of the vote. Brandon Scott has barely a bare majority of the voters in a historically low turnout election. And I think that what we're going to hope to see from this mayor in the next 4 years is that he's going to be a better leader than he has been in the last 3.5 years.
Jimmy Mathis.
Look, I totally agree. There absolutely is no mandate. The story right here is not that Brandon Scott won by double digits. If 3 people voted and 2 voted for Brandon Scott, he would have won by 50%. The story is, and I agree with what everybody's been saying, why did nobody show up to the polls on this election? And I'm talking about Baltimore City. I'm talking about the mayoral race. The primary is the general for mayor. We can all agree on that. The issues that are facing the city right now are affecting everybody. It's not just the homicide number. It's not just crime. It's quality of life issues. It's carjackings. It's auto theft. It's trash collection. It's the people that live in the city should have been more motivated during this election, and they
I agree.
And not. And is that really? And maybe Tanya's right. Maybe people just don't believe in the process anymore, and they believe that their vote doesn't matter. And if that's the case, that is very disturbing, because this is an election where I'm just talking about city residents. They should have shown up in droves, and they sat home. And that's really what the story is right now. And I totally agree. There is no mandate right now with Brandon Scott.
Tonya, all right. I just wanted you to know your little doggy is behind you and looking beautiful. What is the dog's name?
This one is Marlo Stanfield.
Marlo Stanfield.
The Wire.
Pastor,
I love my city.
Gotta love it.
I love my city.
Shannon, we're going to get your opinion about the low voter turnout. But first, you did, I might tell our many, many thousands of Square Off viewers, you are victorious in the Republican mayoral nomination, and you will face the incumbent mayor on November 5th. Congratulations to you, Shannon. But why was the turnout so horrible. Everybody was complaining about all kinds of city issues, and nobody went out to vote.
So
Shannon?
I think folks have lost hope. You know, faith is one thing, hope is another. They lost faith in the process and now have lost hope that there'll be that anything they would have done, any lever they would have pushed will make a difference. When you have folks that are elected and don't necessarily do the will of the people, you start to feel that your vote doesn't count or matter. And I think folks in the city and all over, because voter numbers were low everywhere, I think they've lost hope and hope for change and faith in the system.
Richard, I got my start in radio over a decade ago under the great Ron Smith, and I respected him so much, but he had this saying that I absolutely hated, which was, if your vote mattered, they wouldn't allow you to do it. And I always hated that saying. And I think Robin's right. I think people right now, they don't believe in the process. They don't believe in democracy or a republic, that their voice matters, that whatever the people do has no relevance. And that's really sad, because I don't believe that's the case. And I think what we saw with the voter turnout in Baltimore City is a reflection of just that. People have given up hope, and people's voice, whatever side of the aisle you're on, it does matter. And I don't know. I really believe that we need to take a serious look at this mayoral election and the voter turnout with everything going on in Baltimore City and what that means for us as a society moving forward.
And look,
Bob, Jimmy, hold it, Hassan. We need to move on. We have a lot to cover in this special square of the City Council President's race, won by Councilman Zeke Cohn. Former City Councilwoman Shannon Sneed finished second, and incumbent President Nick Mosby finished third. Why did he finish third, Hassan?
Well, look, this election and its result almost identically mirrored that of his former wife, Marilyn Mosby's election 2 years ago, when Ivan Bates won, and she ended up coming in third behind Thuruf Ignaraja. Most people didn't expect that. They didn't expect Nick to come in third this time around. But I think many people understood the writing was on the wall with Council President Mosby. He didn't really run a campaign almost at all until the very end. Sent out a few mailers, but there was no door knocking. There was no traditional campaigning. Zeke Cohen, from day one last year, 18 months ago, has been hitting the ground, knocking on doors, talking to voters, been very aggressive in his campaigning. He saw an opportunity, he took advantage of it. Shannon Sneed, unfortunately, tried to come in towards the tail end, using campaign finance. She did a fairly good job in terms of based on the timing and the amount of money she had, but it was just too much to overcome with Councilman Cohen.
All right, let's be a little more brief in our comments. Tonya, I know you want to talk. You're muted. Unmute and speak.
Well, I think that some of what the results is telling us is that people do want to change, but they don't believe that it's possible, right? The results for the city council president reflect a desire for change. People may not remember this, but certainly Mayor Scott ran as a change candidate initially when he first ran for the mayor's office. But I think that we are not getting change. We don't, and that's why thus the apathy that we see, that people who run as change candidates ultimately end up being more politics as usual. And we see that with Mayor Scott. Mayor Scott has the nerve to criticize diversity in the arts community in the nonprofit world, but he gives sweetheart deals to a state-sanctioned utility. When you see that, and everybody's bill has gone up, even though this winter was a mild one. So when you see that your elected representatives don't care what you want, I mean, how much more clear could the will of the people be? We voted against selling the conduit system, and our mayor basically said, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do because these people are giving me political contributions. Like that's what makes people stay home. People want change. But our change candidates are not giving it to us. They're just giving us more politics as usual.
Well, look, everybody in a position of power wanted change. Look at Ivan Bates. Look at all the endorsements that Sheila Dixon had, which it takes a lot of takes a lot of guts to, go against the current king. Nobody wanted Scott to have a second term. As far as Nick Mosby goes, no pun intended. I mean, guilty by association. And I totally agree with Hassan. He did not campaign until the final furlong. I really believe that he did not believe he could win that race, and he really did not make a legitimate pitch to to keep his job. Which I get, but again, everybody from the commissioner to the city state's attorney, everybody sided with Sheila on this. And I mean, again, that didn't resonate with the citizens of Baltimore City.
All right, what we're going to do, continue our, oh, I'm sorry. We're going to continue our special election post show in just a moment. We're going to take a look at the red hot race for the United States Senate. This is going to bring a lot of conversation. But first, let's hear from the voice of Square Off, Councilman, President of our panel, Howard.
Thank you, Richard. You know, the way some people drive these days, auto accidents are on the rise. If your car has been in an accident, the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more people are trusting their auto repairs and auto maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models, and they offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give them a call at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. You know, Baltimore is one of the best diner towns in the country, and the most popular of them all are the Double T diners. TT means totally terrific. For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, the Double T menu offers so many choices, you're going to want to order everything. With locations on Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, Monday nights are the lobster nights at By the Docks in Middle River, all part of the Double T family. Back to you, Rich.
I just want to mention that Annabelle and I take our cars to leading edge auto body and mechanic. They are the very best. And they just are. But one of the best races coming up to replace Maryland senior senator, public servant most of his life, Ben Cardin, retiring finally in January. This sets up what we consider a major battle for control of the U.S. Senate, as Angela Alsobrooks, who defeated David Trone for the Democratic nomination, will square off against former two-term Republican Governor Larry Hogan. Hassan, how do you see this playing out?
Well, first, let's not take for granted the $65+ million spent by Congressman David Trone only to get booted out of Congress. I think this is going to be an election between current Prince George's County exec Angela Alsobrooks against our former governor Larry Hogan. It's going to be a barn burner. Obviously, it's going to be money from across the country, if not across the world. I would expect them to spend upwards of $250 million, probably a piece, going into this November election. Because look, there's a lot on the ballot, from Donald Trump to abortion and this is the first time that Republicans truly have a chance of changing and being able to flip a U.S. Senate seat in Maryland since the 1980s. Most people think that Larry Hogan's popularity as governor is going to translate to his popularity for U.S. Senate, and that's not the case at all. Don't expect that. People are going to look at his party affiliation with Donald Trump on the ballot, but don't sleep. Larry Hogan is one of the best campaign strategists I've ever seen in my life, and his people. He is going to run a very effective campaign, but Angela Alsobrooks is going to have women from across this country coming into Maryland to make sure she gets over the top. I personally would expect Alsobrooks to pull it out at the end, but it's way too early to call that right now.
Tonya, I see you nodding. You agree with much of what Hassan just said?
I agree with everything that Hassan just said. I hope that voters remember, the theme of today: elections have consequences. And Larry Hogan was an incredibly popular governor for some people, but his impact on the bench, for example, is I still feel every day as an attorney. He portrays himself very effectively as moderate. and says the right things. But at the end of the day, he is still a Republican. And in a lot of ways, he has demonstrated that loyalty time and time again. He killed the red line. People should remember that. And I do think that Angela Alsobrooks is going to ultimately prevail, but I think it's going to be real tight.
And Shannon, you know that if Alsobrooks wins Cardin's Senate seat, she will become the first African-American woman from Maryland to join the U.S. Senate and the fourth, only the fourth in U.S. history. Pretty good, right?
It's something. This race is definitely going to be one that folks are going to be watching all over. I do agree with everyone else that it's going to be extremely tight. I think also Brooks did a lot of work. The fact that she was able to pull that race out against somebody that spent goo gobs of their own money speaks a lot to her team and the machine she put together. Nobody can deny that. But I think Hogan, with winning his 2 elections as a Republican in a blue state, means that man, like Hassan said, has some strategy power behind him as well. So I think this is going to really be knocked down, dragged out till the end.
Jimmy?
I respectfully disagree with everybody. I don't think this is going to be close. I actually think this is an unwinnable election for Larry Hogan. He was palatable to Republicans who really didn't support having a Democrat. And same thing with the Democrat. And Richard, you bring up the identity politics in this. It is significant. I don't see any path to victory for Larry Hogan. Yeah, sure. Republicans will vote for a Republican, but they're outnumbered 3-1 in this state. I see no path for him. And the fact that he's trying to tap it right now in his campaign. All right, we'll see. But clip this out. There is no way he wins this. Absolutely none.
All right, moving on now to the second congressional race, ladies and gentlemen. Dutch Rupersberger, who is retiring. The Democratic winner Tuesday, John Krzyzewski, Baltimore County executive, will square off against Republican winner and occasional squirrel panelist Kim Klacik in November. What do you think about that race? Real quick, brief.
Johnny O, no question.
Johnny O, no question.
Well, look, that district is very much a Democratic district. All right. I think the 6th district is probably the closest Republicans are going to get to possibly winning an additional seat besides Andy Harris. But don't get it twisted. Kim Klacik, if she did, look, last time when she first ran, she got what Shannon called gobs of money from the Trump machine, right? I think it was 9 million plus that she raised. She didn't really raise that last time. We'll see if she's able to raise even somewhat close to that, because that's what she's going to need to take on the democratically entrenched Johnny O in this congressional race.
Kim Klacik will not be a congresswoman. She may, however, be secretary of I don't know what under the next Trump administration.
I didn't know it was a department of I don't know what. That's going to be interesting. I can see her.
There's like 6 of them.
I think there's been a lot of I don't know what in every administration. Just saying.
We're going to talk about the Biden-Trump debates in just a moment. But first, the third congressional district, Democrat John Sarbanes, another person who is retiring from Washington, and Democratic winner Sarah Alfrith will take on Republican Robert Steinberger in November. Any comment about the third congressional? Anybody? All right, we'll move on. Very good. You're watching squareoff.net. You're watching our post-election special. Breaking this week, news of another square-off. In fact, 2 new square-offs as President Biden and former President Donald Trump agreed to 2 presidential debates. The first, June 27th, 9 p.m. on CNN. It'll be in Atlanta, moderated by Jake Tapper and Dana Bosch. Dana Bosch, no studio audience for this. Debate number 2 will be the second, September 10th, on ABC, moderated by David Muir and Lindsay Davis. Tonya, what do you think about this debate?
I don't even understand why Donald Trump is still a viable candidate for high office. So, and that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Well,
Yeah,
probably,
I don't. What's that, Jimmy?
probably because he's the nominee.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, insurrection. I mean, it's just he shouldn't even be someone that we're talking about. So, it's talk about apathy. Like it is incredibly depressing that he's going to be the nominee for a major political party.
Look, here's the problem. Trumper, and I'm not stumping for Trump, but the reality is the people that I'm just looking at this from an analytical standpoint. The people that support Trump really support Trump. Democrats are not enthused by Biden at all. Youth is really not enthused by him with the multiple wars going on. Somehow the Democratic Party has managed to lose the Jewish community, which is a heavy lift. How they actually pulled that off is fairly impressive. We were talking earlier about turnout. That's going to be another case come November. And look, we all follow politics, right? It's all about voter turnout at the end of the day. And whether you like Trump or you don't, his supporters will absolutely show up. The only question in this election is the people that hate Trump, do they hate him enough to show up and vote against him? That's what this election is going to come down to. I don't know the honest answer to that, but that's what it's going to come down to.
And his people show up. That's how Robin Ficker got 30% of the vote against Larry Hogan, right? Because they stand
it's not old right now, Hassan. That the fact, see, and that's exactly why I'm saying this is an unwinnable election for Larry Hogan. That's a great point. It is.
And you want to talk about apathy? I'm gonna tell you right now, Richard. These two debates, nobody cares about them. That is probably going to be the lowest turnout in history for presidential debates that you're going to see, because nobody cares about Joe Biden or Donald Trump, and nobody cares enough to waste an hour or two of their time on a whatever night it's going to be on to watch those two debate
with no studio audience.
I'll be watching. I'm just saying, I will be watching, and I will be taking notes, because to me, you got two folks running that a lot of folks in this country say neither one should be running. That we really don't have good choices in this election cycle. So I personally will be watching, because I want to see who's going to do the least amount of damage.
The lesser of two evils.
I will be watching.
I want to mention that the June 27th will come before either candidate has officially won his party's nomination at the convention. Here's a quote from Biden. He says, "Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. Since then, he hasn't shown up for any debates. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well," says Biden, "make my day, pal." Trump says Biden was the worst debater he's ever faced. He can't put 2 sentences together. Tonya?
But again, the whole lesser of two evils, that doesn't motivate people to go to the polls.
Exactly.
It doesn't. And that's why this comes back to voter turnout. And it does have that. The people that are behind Trump are energized. And even my very far liberal friends, they hate Donald Trump, but they don't like Joe Biden. And at the end of the day, I think that just means they sit home and they watch the results on television.
Who's likely to win the election between
Donald Trump? Donald Trump.
Trump's going to win, without a doubt. I don't think it's a question in my mind that he's going to win. And it's going to return back to what we saw 4 years ago, if not worse. If you think Brandon Scott thinks he has a mandate in his mind, wait till Donald Trump gets back in office. Oh, boy. He's going to be on the warpath. And Democrats, minorities, and other people might not benefit too greatly from that. Now, I got to say, under his first administration, minorities actually benefited a lot more, they would think, or say, than they have under the past 4 years of the Biden administration. And I think that would be a large argument to be made. That's what I'm telling you. That's what they all say.
What are we talking about?
I'm just telling you. It's the word on the street.
Jimmy, I know you're laughing in your van. What? What are you
After 4
laughing
years
at?
of this, I'll be living in this car. What are we talking about? From a foreign policy standpoint, the entire world ceased to fight each other under the Trump administration. Gas was down, stock market was up, unemployment was down, real unemployment. Q6, we had a good relationship with Israel. Putin stood on the border. What the hell are we talking about? Let's get down to brass tacks on this. You're talking about a mandate, what, to get back to what Hassan just said, where we were 5 years ago? Absolutely. Who is not down with that? Who wants another 4 years of what we have dealt with? Every major United States city is crumbling. Foreign policy is back to the Obama administration. What are we talking about?
Tell them why you're mad, Jimmy. Tell them why you're mad.
Jimmy,
Not mad.
Jimmy, I have an ambulance headed in your direction.
Please don't afford it. Can't afford health care, please.
Well, you know, go ahead, Tonya.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I don't disagree with the various stats that you've thrown out, Jimmy, and I will say that I actually know that under Trump administration, a lot of small businesses thrive, but there is a palpable difference in what it feels like to live as a person of color in America with a Trump, presidency. That's just a reality. I mean, I don't expect people who aren't people of color to get it, but as a relatively well-off, Harvard and Stanford educated lawyer who's well connected, my life felt different with President Trump in office, and I'm not someone who's vulnerable to a lot of the bad things that can happen to you as a person of color in America when President Trump's in office. So I do think that a lot of people will come out, and even though they don't enthusiastically support Joe Biden, they will vote against Donald Trump, and I'm certainly one of those people.
There are a lot of people out there, a lot of voters who are disenchanted with both of the candidates, as you said, concerned about the advanced ages. Biden 81, Donald Trump 77. And what do you think is going to, you think that Trump, Shannon, you think Trump is going to win?
I do. The argument, I've talked to a lot of people over the last couple of months to a year. And a lot of folks are saying they don't like a lot of the things that Trump says, but their pockets were better under the Trump administration. And for a lot of folks, when you're struggling to pay bills, that's what you're going to think about to keep food on the table and a roof over your head. Especially, as Tonya said, a lot of small business owners. The economic rewards were much better. So I think if folks vote with their pockets, Trump will win.
All right, let's take a break and welcome back Howard. We're running a little over time, but that's okay. This is a special square off. Howard, jump in here.
Thanks, Rich. Richard and I are proud to represent the law firm of Barry Glazer. Barry always goes that extra mile for his clients, whether it's been a personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect. Barry and his staff, that includes an in-house doctor, make no apologies for getting top dollar from the insurance companies. His clients are his best advertising. Next time you're in need of a lawyer, give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568. He gets results. Tell him Richard Sher sent you. For special occasions, group get-togethers, or just date night, Papa's Restaurant and Sports Bars belong on top of your list. Enjoy their award-winning crab cake, or as Richard calls it, the fab cake, and a great selection of steaks, seafood, and other mouth-watering treats. Papa's is Oprah's favorite, and they ship their crab cakes all over the country. 4 locations, including their newest sports bar and restaurant in Bel Air. Papa's food, service, and atmosphere is second to none. Back to you, Rich.
Well, we want to thank all of our panelists and the viewers, and welcome to Baltimore to all the out-of-towners who are here for this week. Have a great time at the race, and join us next time at squareoff.net. We want to thank you, Tonya Bana, Mr. Politics, Hassan Giordano, our faith leader, Shannon Wright, and our mobile panelist who lives in a van now Jimmy the Van Mathis. And we'll see you next time. Thank you all. It was a really interesting show. Very enthusiastic, good energy. And we'll see you next time. And once again, we square off. Goodbye, everybody.